Hi everyone, nice meeting you all again. Be safe, take healthy food. Well, today we'll see about your memory. What are the types of memory used in your computers? We already saw about your CPU, types of CPU, and the latest CPU also I have informed. When you are replacing, see that you also know about that CPU. And remember, don't try to remove unless and until you are well certified or well trained to disassemble and assemble your system. So in our class what you are going to learn is externally how to resolve the issue. Either it is a software issue or hardware issue. We are not going to disassemble or assemble any devices. We are going to isolate the issue, then we are going to try to resolve the issue, whether it is a software issue, any connectivity for the hardware, or any loose connection, which you are going to handle it physically, which you are going to see external devices. Well, so this is actually for beginners who doesn't know about computers and they are little bit scared to handle computers. And the person who are in rural areas where they are keeping it idle, not knowing what the issue is in your computers. Okay, so in case you have an CPU issue, you won't have any display. So that I want to tell you now, and we'll show you a video in our next class about your CPU issue and your memory issue. So example, once memory is lost, the person goes idle. Same way here also, if CPU and memory fails, the total system doesn't work. So in that situation we can isolate. We are going to show you a video in our next class. Today we'll see about your memory. What are the types of memory they are using, why they are using memory. So you should know that if a CPU is processing a software or data, what it will do is once it's processing the data, it has to send it to an output device through a memory. So example, like you want to send a message, how do you send? If it is nearby, you can speak. So that's a software which you are speaking and he is able to hear. If he is in a long distance, you are sending through a mail or a letter. So that's a message you are sending. The same way, a CPU, once it is processing a data, it will be sending back. The data is received by memory, then it is given to CPU, it processes, and once it gets back, it sends it to your display unit or a printer. So what we require here is the CPU bus speed has to match with your memory. So that's how you replace memory. So people ask, sir, I have a DDR3 memory, can I replace DDR4? Of course we cannot do that. I have a DDR1 memory, can I replace DDR2 memory? No, you cannot replace, because there the pin settings is different from DDR1 and DDR2. Okay, so what are the types of memory? You have a memory known as RAM and ROM. So what is RAM? It's a random access memory. And what is ROM? It is read-only memory. So RAM is volatile. Volatile means once you are working, the data will be received and sent. Received from an input device, sent to an output device after processing by CPU. But remember, it is volatile. Once the power goes off or your system turns off, immediately the data in your RAM is erased. So only once you work any application, what you're doing is you're actually saving the file in a permanent memory storage device, example your hard disk. But in ROM it is permanent, but still remember it's also volatile. They give a small power supply to it so that the programmed place, or what to say, you have a ROM which is already programmed, you cannot program in that again. In that ROM you have a small part known as RAM also, where we are going to look into it how it works. So ROM is already a programmed IC, you cannot alter anything in that. Well, so I'm going to tell you about that ROM practically in our next class. Today we'll see types of memory. Okay, so you have memory from 8088 CPU they have given. You have a DRAM from in that stage. Then you have SDRAM. DRAM is nothing, dynamic random access memory. SDRAM, synchronous dynamic random access memory. Then you have DDR1, DDR2, DDR3, and now we have DDR4. So what is this different types of memory? So DRAM started from 8 MHz to 10 MHz. So that's how your CPU also was working in that speed. So it has to match the CPU speed. Example, your friend is going in a bicycle and you are riding a motorbike or a car, and you want to talk to him and go along in an empty road or something like that. So what happens? Will the bicycle match your speed, motorbike or a car? No, you will have to match his speed. So that's how CPU and memory is designed. So CPU will work according to the speed of your memory. So remember, from DRAM to DDR4, the CPU bus speed frequency will match with the frequency of the memory. Then only it will be synchronous. Well, so this is the types of memory available, like DRAM, SDRAM, then we have DDR1, DDR2, DDR3. Okay, why they have changed from DRAM, then SDRAM and DDR1? So I said synchronous dynamic random access memory, that is bus speed deferred. So there you had only for one clock pulse one data, but here DDR1 it's known as double data at the rate. So what happens? For one clock pulse you have two data going out. So it transfers two data at one clock pulse. So only it is known as double data at the rate. So it is known as DDR1, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4. So remember, the DDR1 had a bus speed of from 800 MHz, 666 to 800. Then it changed the range for DDR2. And remember, so only it is faster. When you work on application, what happens is you are able to see in the screen in a faster mode. So example, like if you are traveling to 5 kilometers distance in a cycle, it takes some hours or minutes. If you are going in bike, it takes less minutes. If you are going in a car, it takes less minutes. So the same way, the more processing time is faster according to the processing speed of the processor as well as the memory. So here what we look into is, when you are going to replace in a motherboard DDR2, it should be only DDR2. If you are going to replace DDR3, it should be only DDR3. So you cannot replace DDR1, you cannot replace DDR1 memory, or I'm sorry, you cannot replace DDR2 for DDR1 memory. You cannot replace DDR3 to DDR2 because the pin settings and the memory slot is different. So I think you are quite clear about this memory now. So do remember that once you take a memory and you look into it, it will be written DDR1 or DDR2 and the bus speed next to it. So example, when you buy a memory card for your mobile phone, do you know about that? So you will be asking 8 GB or 16 GB memory card. So 8 GB memory card when you are buying, it will be saying that class 4, class 10. So he'll say 8 GB memory card, I have different company, but same company, you ask him, he'll say around, you say some 1,000 rupees, some 8 GB you think. Then you say no, you have any less price. Okay, he'll give you the same brand, like any good branded memory. He'll say yes, I have. But what is that? That it's actually nothing. Class 4, class 10 you have. Class 4 is less and class 10 is costly. And remember, class 4 is bus speed will be less. Class 10 is faster. So that's it. Here memory, according to the bus speed, the cost is different. As well as remember, i3, i4, i5 and i7 processor. i7 processor comes with DDR4. And remember the latest generation i7, like 8th gen, 9th gen, 10th gen uses DDR4. Only i7 4th gen uses DDR3. If you are having a 8th gen processor and that motherboard only supports DDR4, you cannot buy a DDR3 RAM and insert in the DDR4 slot, because the pin settings is different, and if you try to fix it by yourself, you might break the memory or the slot. So that's what I am telling you. Once it's confirmed that you have a memory or a CPU issue, kindly do call a technician from the reputed store. Well, that's it about your memory. Take care. Meet you again.